You know, a lot of people, well, they do themselves a disservice when they're not being genuine, when they're being somewhat disingenuous, but, well, trying to mask it in a clever, kind of very deceitful way. You know, these people that do those kind of things, well, it says a lot more about their character than it does about, well, the things that they do it in question about or concern you. Well, I want to talk about someone who's, well, very religious in nature. Well, someone who says that they're a practicing Christian. And well, this person has a huge platform online. And well, when you know, they've written books, they have a podcast, and well, you know, I hate to disparage anyone or rain on anyone's parade, but you know, I just gotta say a couple of things, and then, you know, I'll let the dust settle where it might. You know, the person I'm talking about is Allie Beth Stuckey, and well, she identifies as being a white Christian woman. I'm not sure which denomination of Christianity. Maybe evangelicism. I don't know. Anyway, I was reading well, a tweet that she sent out about a situation where a black individual, a black male, was murdered tragically by a police officer who, she did something that's illegal. And the black person who she murdered, their family, well, they acknowledged in court that they forgave her. And well, apparently some people were upset that they did that. And well, it's the family's right to do whatever they want to do. Nobody can tell certain people what to do. Anyway, she went online and she said, well, she turned it into a left or right thing and said people were upset because, well, black, they wanted the black person to, well, have a grievance and they make everything about race. And well, you know, I had to stop and pause and reflect on this. This was, well, deep pondering in nature that I had to do. And well, I parsed out the word that I thought was most important, grievance. And then I was like, well, a grievance is, well, you have a dispute. And well, it's never really solved. That's what a grievance is. And well, people get upset the longer the dispute doesn't get solved. Say, for instance, I broke my lawnmower when I was mowing the lawn. And I had a warranty on the thing. And well, I called in about the lawnmower. And well, when you know, they give me the runaround. They won't fix it. They're like, oh, well, you got to bring it into this location. And we're not sure that it's covered. I bring it in. And they're like, well, it's the wrong store. You got to go back to the store that you picked it up from. Eventually, well, you get upset about those kind of things. And much the same, a grievance is, well, an unsolved dispute that's lasted for years. So when she mentions that racism and compares racism to a grievance, well, I think the grievance is, well, justified. Seeing as the United States, well, has never done anything to settle its dispute with the African American or black community. You know, you can't talk about grievances as though they're a bad thing and say, well, some things are just by grace and forgiveness. You know, forgiveness is all fine and dandy. Don't get me wrong. When you make a mistake, you should ask for forgiveness. But it should be sincere. You know, if I have to be honest, and if I'm calling balls, balls, and strikes, strikes, the larger at large white community in the United States or in Europe as a whole has never asked for forgiveness for what they did to black people in this planet around the world. back during slavery. No, there's never been an ask. So you can't blame, well, a group or people or an individual if you never ask for that forgiveness to just automatically, well, magically blink 3 times and forgive you. And well, what would we be forgiving people for? Well, let's talk about that. Allie Beth Stuckey identifies as a Christian. You know, back in, well, back when slavery was a thing, and well, and when they were transporting the slaves, you know, they had forts set up where men and women and children, they stayed in dungeons. And well, a dungeon, I'm not sure if you know what a dungeon is, but it's a hole in the ground, deep down in the ground. Tiny dark hole, you can't see anything, there's no light. And well, it's a horror show if you got hundreds of thousands of people in a dungeon. And that's sort of kind of what it was. People on top of people in a dungeon. Feces everywhere. Pee everywhere. People, bodies. Probably dead bodies. People sick, vomiting. You know, unimaginable atrocity. And well, this happened prior to, well, the slaves being transported to what was considered the New World. And well, wouldn't you know, right on top of these dungeons, there were churches where people prayed to this imaginary creature called Jesus. And you know, if you got people in dungeons and, well, you don't care about the people in dungeons, and you're praying to, well, Jesus or whatever God, whatever the deity is, but you're using Christianity, well, has the Christian faith ever apologized for, well, condoning slavery? I don't think they have. And, well, somebody should pose that question to Allie Beth Stuckey. Has the church, the Christian, you know, the Church of Jesus Christ, has they ever apologized for slavery, condoning it, justifying the tool and operation of slavery by saying that it's a Christian principle? No, I've never heard the church in all of these centuries give one apology for what the fuck they did in slavery. And you want to talk about forgiveness? No. First you have to ask for forgiveness before anybody can forgive you. And grievance. Yeah, people have a right to have a grievance about certain things. You know, let's talk about the spirit. The spirit. They say, well, the spirit doesn't see color and flesh. You know, I can smell bullshit. You know, I can smell a lie from a mile away. You know that's a lie. They know it's a lie. Well, let's examine what was just said. They say in Christianity that the spirit doesn't see color or flesh. Well, I have a question, or a couple of questions. I'm using the Socratic method here. Bear with me. If the spirit doesn't see flesh or color, then why is Jesus a male? Why is Jesus male and looking? Why do people use male pronouns for Jesus? If Jesus, well, if the spirit doesn't see flesh, a male is certainly flesh. But why is Jesus represented as a man in our society, on our planet? How come Jesus is not represented as non-binary, or as a female, or, well, as a creature, an alien? You know, the spirit doesn't see flesh, but we're just going to make Jesus, well, a man. Sounds like the spirit sees flesh to me, because man is mortal. That's what at least they taught us in logic. Anyway, let's talk about the color. Well, I have another question. If the spirit doesn't see color, then why is Jesus white? Why is Jesus black? Why do people argue whether Jesus is white or black? You know, people gotta stop lying. People gotta stop bullshitting themselves. You can't bullshit an owl. You can't lie to an owl. You know, the Christian faith, Allie Beth Stuckey, you're in the big leagues now. You can't just say these things and then think that, well, they're going to peruse away. They're just going to magically, well, go away. You know, people are entitled to their grievance. And nobody's entitled to forgive you just because you ask for an apology. And well, the apology has to come with, well, some atonement. You know, the Christian faith talks about atonement all the time, but not too many people actually give examples of what atonement would look like. I've actually got an example because you leave it to the purple peoples out, and I fix problems. I'm a fair arbitrator of all things. You know what atonement would look like? The people that were in dungeons, you know, their ancestors. Well, they have descendants, wouldn't you know? And it's time to pay reparations to those descendants for what the church did, for what Portugal did, what Italy did, what the Arab world did, and what the European did. It's time to pay reparations. Everybody get your checkbook out. It's paying season. And you're like, well, I can't afford it. I don't have it. I didn't personally do it. No, all of those things, well, there's variance of truth in them. And yes, it is true that you didn't personally do it, but you certainly benefited from it. You certainly, as a descendant, benefited from your ancestors enslaving other people. And well, it's time to pay up for that. You know, if you believe in atonement, if you really truly believe in forgiveness, you have to ask for forgiveness. And then you have to listen to what people want in order to forgive you. You know, sometimes they want an apology in writing. And they want, well, formal recognition of that apology entered into the permanent record. The church should formally apologize on the record. All denominations of the church should apologize for condoning slavery. You know, the fact that they haven't says a lot more about them than it does anything else. It says that they're not Christ-like, that they're full of bullshit. And that's why, well, I have no affiliation to the church. Never will. I can't stand the church, nor the religion, because I think it's phony. And I think a lot of the people that are in it are phony. You know, a survey just recently came out that said the more you go to church, the more racist you'll be. Well, of course, you're sitting there looking at an idol of a man with blonde hair and blue eyes, or with black or brown skin and woolly hair. You know, if you ask somebody at a gas station for directions, and they tell you it's over the hill, over yonder, past there you make a right, and then you make a left, and then you turn, and then you make a U-turn, and you'll see it on the left-hand corner side of the street. Well, you know, you're going to go in there, and you're going to walk out and say, I'm not following those directions. Let me get a map. This was before GPS. You know, a lot of people can't say that they don't know. They just can't admit it. So people make up things to make them feel comfortable, put their mind at ease. And that's the thing. Nobody knows what God is or what God looks like, or even if the God exists. And so, humans, mostly men, have to make up bullshit. And they have to add their likeness and representation to it. And people fight in war over that kind of thing here on this planet. It's a true shame because, nobody knows. It's an uncertain thing. And Allie, Beth, Stuckey, stop talking about forgiveness. Stop talking about grievances. Because people are entitled to have their grievance. And, you haven't made a formal apology yet. So nobody can forgive you without apologizing. You know, be Christ-like. That's why they named the church Christ, or the Church of Jesus Christ. Or do you call yourself Christian? You know, start being Christ-like. Start doing the things that Christ actually did. Start talking about the things that Christ actually talked about. Not transgenderism, not homosexuality, you know, poverty, making sure that the unhoused have food and housing. Those things. Start doing those things. And then maybe, just then maybe, you get the atonement.